All right, this is chapter 11, personnel, whatever, and security. We're going to just touch on some of it. We don't need to cover a lot of it in great depth. Okay, staffing security functions is less than 4% of the surveyed were unemployed. So in other words, in this area, unemployment is very low. We're talking to some people that worked at Devon. You know how Devon laid off a bunch of people along with all the other oil companies, but they weren't laying off people in this position. Why would that be?
You always need security.
Right. I mean, that's one area where employment's going up. I was in an airport. Which one was it? Dulles.
Tinker.
Was it Dulles? No, it wasn't Dulles. Somewhere up in that area, and you know how in the airport they got all these big, huge banners everywhere? Well, on all the poles, there was like cybersecurity, 75% job growth in the last 12 months. So, yeah, there's lots and lots of jobs. I got 2 or 3 more emails about jobs yesterday. Last week. So, it says half of those responded for reasons other than job availability. So, a lot of people, now, I'm not saying if you're an idiot, you're going to be able to get a job. You still have to be somewhat competent, and as we know, some people do get hired and get fired immediately, like some people that used to work here. This is over 35% respondents reported changing jobs in 2012. In other words, a lot of people are switching jobs. A lot of times it's because better opportunities become available. Okay? I've actually been offered many jobs with better opportunities, but the time off here is good, but only if I would take it, which I haven't been. But it's another story. Okay, it says qualifications. It says general management should learn more about the requirements. When I ran my consulting business, I took care of some companies who literally had no funding for IT whatsoever. Because years ago, 20 years ago, did you need IT? No, we didn't need IT. So why should we fund it? I know I've mentioned this class before, but when I was up in Kansas talking, well, it was a teacher there from some school, I don't remember which one, and he said what they have started to do, since IT is so important, they fund IT first. Then they divvy up the rest of the budget for everything else the school needs. Kind of a cool idea, but I could see waste in that area as well. So to learn more about the budgetary and personnel needs, Tinker is hiring some brand new people in their cybersecurity area. Requires a CISSP, which we're going to learn about. Okay, they were asking me what's a good starting salary for a CISSP. I told them 84 grand, but technically it's closer to 120 now. But the problem is by averages of where you live and everything. But yeah. The budget, personnel, if you get someone that's good, they're going to cost money. Okay? You might have to restructure your organization. You might have to, restructure a lot of stuff. It says reorganize that InfoSec is a management task that cannot be handled with technology alone. In other words, you can't just buy stuff. You need people to implement it, enforce it, and configure it, and budget for it. Okay? It says work well with the people, have strong written and verbal communications. That's an area where a lot of people have a problem. How many of you like speaking in front of people? I bet none of you. No one does. It's one of the a very large fear for a lot of people. It was actually a very large fear for me when I first started. Okay, in Virginia, she said the same thing. When we first started lecturing, she was very scared. You get used to it after a while. I spoke at the state capitol back, I think it was in 2004, when we were first getting our Tulsa grant. And at that time, there was, I think, 4 or 5 schools involved, maybe there was 6 schools involved. So we all had to make presentations of what we were doing up at the capitol. And Rose State was last. So it's funny, but so everybody's presenting from all these big wigs from the state capitol. Then I get up there and I actually added some humor to it. Because you have to. You got to liven it up a little. And when I got down there, like, thank you. These congressmen, Thank you, because we were falling asleep. And your presentation woke us back up, and we really, really appreciate it, because public speaking is tough. I got to go speak to 2 groups of students tomorrow. Verbal's another story. Um, I actually was in that class, 2 weeks ago, I guess now? That guy was amazingly brilliant. Couldn't spell worth a hill of beans. But, is that important? Do you think it's as important nowadays to learn how to spell perfectly and type without errors? What do you think? Anybody?
Depends specifically in the field you're going into and how professional you want to be.
Okay, I'm going to be a infosec manager somewhere.
Well, yeah, if you're going to be typing up the policies, it needs to be professional. But
Okay, but what about spell check?
oh, there you go. There you go.
Spell check
Yeah,
does
it really
most
does
of the
At least a
course.
basic grasp of how
Right,
to
you need
words
to have a
and
basic
stuff.
understanding of reading and
Spell.
writing, but I don't
Because
think
you
it's
can
as
write
important
even
spelling anymore because we have. But it was funny when I first started teaching for Park University. I had to submit my syllabus before classes start for approval. It never failed. They would always send it back for spelling errors. Well, I had a word processor with spelling. Back then, you literally had to tell it to spell check. But it didn't spell check capital letters. When you have a heading that's all in capital letters, it would ignore that. So I ended up finally realizing just leave it normal case, spell check it, then convert to capital letter line second. Because you just miss stuff like that. It was never fails, I'd miss them. Are you serious? How did I miss that? Okay. So knowledge of role of policy in guiding efforts. Policy, we all hate policy, but it is a very important aspect of it. Okay. Education and training. So I'm in charge. I have lots of education. I have lots of training. So obviously we don't need to train and educate anybody else because I already have all the training. What do you think? Good plan? No. You still need to educate and train people. Plus you have job turnover, all that stuff. Okay? I think I mentioned here, McDonald's is a 600% job turnover. So does that mean since every position is going to be replaced 6 times a year, so what's that, every other month, why train them? Because they're going to be leaving anyway. But you don't know, they might not leave, and it would be helpful if they did. I actually did a mystery shop at a McDonald's, and what was amazing to me was the guy working the cash register at lunchtime, which is one of their busiest times, first day on the job. So obviously he was slow. But all the other workers are just in the background. It's you probably should have had someone more registers open and to help this guy because it just didn't look good. But training, education, big deal. Okay, perceive the threats facing an organization. Now that one's tough. Are the threats today the same as the threats 2 years ago? No. How about next month? We don't know. They're going to change, obviously, right? Threats are always changing. Threats can become attacks, and we need to figure out ways to safeguard our organization. There was an article I read this weekend. Some bank lost millions of dollars. No firewall in place. Linksys home router connected to their network with no password. Is that not saying, please rob me?
That'd make it easier than having to.
I know, it's think about it.
The expression "candy from a baby" comes
Yeah.
to mind.
But just think about it. You're so we theoretically could just drive from bank to bank to bank and probably get in. Don't you think we could? That's the proven point right there. Millions of dollars in the I think it was 60 million. It might have only been 20 million, but it was 2 digits with a 0 and a something. So, but that's crazy. So in that point, I would say people did not even realize what that. We're safe. We'll just put this Linksys router in here. There was a show. Can't think of the name.
How to catch a thief?
Was it How to Catch a Thief? They had an episode where they broke into a car dealer and stole the car and then drove the car back, parked it in backwards with a sign on it or something.
I don't know
But
about that.
they basically broke into things. And what they would do is they would break into a location, find a jack somewhere, just stick a Linksys router in it and leave. Then do it all remotely. Because, Brad, our IT guy was funny. This is a couple years ago now, but he was telling me about someone in engineering, but some student literally just brought a router with him to school and plugged it in underneath the desk he was sitting at. Now our IT detected it, and someone else was actually plugged into the main Rose network with a web server in my old office. Brad's like, okay, I know it's here somewhere. It's connected in room 131, my old office. I'm like, it's me. I'm here. I'm not running a web server. What it was, Caleb at the time was working on a project for OSU, was sitting in the back, and he plugged his laptop in, and he had a web server running on there for a project. I'm like, oh. So, hey, at least it's good that he was looking for it, which was kind of good, okay? Understand how controls can be applied, okay? Demonstrate familiar with mainstream information technologies. Do you know how to use normal stuff? They don't mention it here, but do you follow news feeds? Do you look at CERT? Do you even know what NIST is? That kind of stuff, Understands technology concepts, terminology, okay? All right. A lot of people come from law enforcement and military. Why would that be? Any ideas? So why would it be a good idea to hire someone from the military?
They're trusted.
Trusted is a big issue. I am a firm believer that everybody should join the military. First of all, you learn respect. You're in the military. You're not, I'm assuming, and you're not. They actually teach you how to fold a t-shirt. They do. How to fold socks. How to make your bed. They literally teach you how to shave. Literally everything. They teach you literally everything. They don't tell you how to wash. I'm assuming they do?
Yes.
I couldn't remember that. But, because remember, they got people coming to the military with no knowledge of anything, so they basically get everybody up to an even keel there. But that's one thing. Military, they learn respect. They learn, respect is such a big issue, okay, nowadays, because people don't have it. We went to see Dr. Schnoy last week. Very eye-opening experience for all the students that went about his program. But he had accepted a student from here into the master's level starting in the fall. Well, they have the master's level program, but then they also have Dr. Schnoy's program. Two different things. You can do your master's degree at Tulsa and pay $30,000 a semester, but you're not part of his cyber squad, basically. Okay? But yeah, he called me about this student because this student has no respect. And the problem is, this is an older student. We're talking my age. And he actually called me twice yesterday. For a very long time, said, I'm really having an issue with this student because the student's very argumentative. Okay? And the way Dr. Schnoy teaches, it's funny. He tells you something. Because all the way up there, I was telling the students what not to do. Just don't ask stupid questions, because he'll really jump all over you for stupid questions. And believe it or not, I get stupid questions every single day. Tons of them. But the way he lectures, he'll be like, okay, in other careers such as IT, agree, information is important, agree, and he keeps saying agree over. And really, it's the way he does it. But it's, he just has an issue with people that are argumentative. And that's what he kept calling me last night about these students. He's like, this student needs to take compilers first. This is their first semester. I'm like, that ain't going to happen. Especially with only a Java background, without the theory of computing or something like that. But so that's why people from the military, law enforcement are usually good choices. They have that background in. Even Dr. Schnoy's program, he has said that he will make special accommodations for military people. Because he knows at least they have something, they have some background. So even if it's not in the right field, at least they have something, okay? Other fields, networking, programming, database, systems administration, there's jobs everywhere, okay? Now, I'm not saying you have to be from the military or law enforcement. It's just that you come in and you should have an ethics component. You should have a trust component built in, ingrained in your body, so. Maybe not quite as much as, now you're Air Force, aren't you?
No.
Yeah. See, I mean, you know the difference. You ever seen Marines?
I was a Marine.
Yeah. Okay. Marines are Marines from day one until they die. Air Force, not so much. Up, get out of the Air Force. That's done. But Marines, no, you're still a Marine. It's like I never knew that so well, except for that Sergeant Grit, sells T-shirts and stuff. Yeah, I've seen people 95 years old there that literally still Marines. It's like, wow, it's tough. Okay, professionalism. Okay, it says clearly define their expectations. We're going to see more about that in a second. Position description is exactly what you need to do. Now, the problem in this area, okay, how do you know what the exact position descriptions are? Obviously, you can benchmark off of somebody else, but if you're a small business, you don't know what you need, so it's kind of tough. It is. It's kind of tough to know what you need. Okay? There are a lot of positions, and we're going to talk about some of them. Okay? We got our CISO. He's kind of the guy in charge. Okay? Normally reports to the CSO, the Chief Security Officer. It says frequently, most knowledgeable, or must have knowledge. That doesn't even sound right. Must be knowledgeable in all areas of InfoSec technology planning and policy. Now, does that mean the CISO must know how to configure a firewall? I would say no. He needs to know what a firewall is. He needs to know we need a firewall. Does he actually have to know how to configure? It would be great if he did, but he doesn't have to. Okay. Maybe he worked on firewalls years ago, like assembly language. Y'all know what assembly language is? I used to teach that. Well, it's a very low-level language.
Okay.
You got binary, then assembly language. I mean, that's pretty much where you're at. It's the lowest level. Whenever you decompile a program, in other words, tear it apart, you always go down to assembly language because that's what all of our language convert to. I used to teach that. It was actually one of the very first languages I taught. I taught it every semester for years. And I was good at it because obviously I taught it forever. Haven't taught it in 20 years now. So guess how much I remember of it? Not much.
20%.
There you go. Not much. Does that mean I can pick it up again? Yes. The fact is I haven't done it in a lot. Okay, so this guy needs to be good and at least know what all this stuff is. Okay, qualifications and position requirements. There's some certifications out there. CISSP. Obviously, that's the current best one on the market. I have that one. 80% failure rate. They just recently converted all their tests to electronics. They were never done electronically because they were worried about
Cheating.
exams getting stolen and all that other stuff. So, okay, but yeah, CISSP and CISM, two good certifications there. Okay, and there's this book, we actually looked at it many chapters ago, about roles and responsibilities made easy. We're not going to look at it again, but here are some of the principles. Business engagement, focused initiative, aligned target and time initiatives, service delivery, credibility, relationship management. So, you really don't see a lot of technical stuff there, okay? But he's still in charge of all that. He still needs to know what it all is, okay? Security manager is accountable for the day-to-day operation of all parts of the InfoSec program. Again, he's probably not going to be out there doing it all himself, but he's in charge of it. We have Richard Andrews here on campus in charge of all the construction going on. Does that mean he actually knows how to do all the construction? No, but he's working with the contractor to get it done. Okay, so he's overseeing it, kind of like the security manager oversees the InfoSec program. Okay. Okay, let's move on. List of duties: maintain current and approved body and knowledge necessary to perform the management. In other words, you still need to know what's going on in the field. Effectively apply management knowledge to enhance the security of your networks. Okay. Just because you got some kid who's great at firewalls, he might still be an idiot. Okay, so you got to watch all that. It says maintain working knowledge of applicable legislative and regulatory initiatives. What we're talking about there is last October the whole credit card with the chips became required. If you didn't know anything about that, you're missing out. So you really need to be up to date on all that stuff. Develop policies, standards, guidelines, and procedures. Doesn't mean you have to develop them all, but you need to be involved in all of them. And then report to higher management. Okay. Participate in short and long-term planning. When I went to a conference once It's actually a training class up at Microsoft headquarters in Redmond, Washington. Very nice place. I'd never been to Microsoft before, and this guy came in to tell us about some of the projects they were working on, and he was a long-term planner. He planned for things happening in 10 years. And I was like, that's a tough job. Okay? How would you like a job where you really looked at that far out? I mean, what's happening in 10 years?
Automated cars.
Yeah, automated cars, obviously. This whole keyboard shit's gone. Computer's gone. It's probably all tablets or something like that. I mean, I don't even think we have projectors anymore. This wall is just going to...
That integrated environment.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's some tough stuff to think about. Okay? Okay, monitor the program measurement process and evaluate. Is it working? Is it not working? Okay? It says oversee and conduct reviews, coordinate reviews of contracts, projects, and proposals. Okay? We're going to get to contractors here in a second, but is it a good idea to contract stuff out? What do you think?
They're the experts, but
Yeah.
lose security with it.
You lose security, definitely. But, I mean, sometimes, like you said, the contractors are normally... You could bring in someone that's an expert in a field. It's cheaper than hiring someone on staff that's an expert in that field. So, all right. Manage personnel. Okay. Let's see. Qualifications. Let's see. Budgeting, project management, personnel management, hiring and firing. All that stuff's part of it. We're going to talk more about each one of those here in a few minutes. The technician now, he's the actual guy who does the dirty work. He configures the firewalls. He implements the software security. Okay. Says the role of security technician is typically an entry-level position. If we're talking about installing antivirus, probably could teach everybody how to do that. Hopefully. Okay. All right. So some level of experience with particular hardware or software packages. Hey, you know what? We are switching to software XYZ. We need someone who knows software XYZ. So, easy enough. All right. So it should include roles and responsibilities. Okay, we're going to move on from there. Okay. Many of them rely on professional certifications. Okay. Why do they do that? Just like the bullet says, to ascertain a level of proficiency possessed by a given candidate. Okay. It says employers struggle to match certifications to position requirements. I was talking to some guys at Tinker because they required an A+ for quite a while. Now they want a Security Plus now, but they can live with an A+. So why do you think they went with Security Plus instead of A+? Anybody know? I wasn't sure, so I asked the question. What they said was they wanted a certificate that included a security focus, but just a single certificate. Because if you're going to have to require everybody to get it, that gets damn expensive. So maybe if we want CISSP instead, well, CISSP requires a lot more training, a lot more preparation, higher failure rates, so obviously it would be very hard to require that. You agree with that?
Yeah.
Where Security Plus, it's kind of like the A+, Network Plus on steroids is what it is. So I understand if they're going to go for a single certification that embodies some sort of security, that's probably the way to go. Okay, but picking the right one. Now they could change. Security Plus is good today. 10 years ago we didn't have the Security Plus. So it says they try to determine which certification program will help them in the job market. Okay, so I'm assuming some of you are planning on getting the certifications. Okay, the military pay for yours?
Certification?
Yes.
I haven't looked into it.
Okay. I think they do, or maybe reimburse or something, but it's a good idea to look for those. And here's some, ISC squared, probably one of the most, not say widely known, trusted certification, or, in other words, they're tougher. They're more content. I mean, A+, not that hard. Okay, you can have a general computer knowledge and pass that one. CISSP involves more. SSCP, they're all kind of the same there, which we're going to talk about. And then software is based on software. Let's look at some of these. CISSP says at least 5 years of direct full-time security professional work experience, or 2 or more of 10 domains, which we'll see what they are. In other words, you need some experience. You cannot just pass the test and get this. you can't even become a CISSP without being recommended by somebody. Okay? Tim Myers, one of my prior students, wanted to get a CISSP, so he needed to be recommended by a current CISSP, so I had to recommend him. So, right? It says 4 years of direct security work intended to the domains and some college, so you can get that instead. Here's the domains, what they mean by the areas you need to know. Access control, business continuity, cryptography, governance, risk management, legal, regulations, investigations, operational, physical, security, architecture, software, development, telecommunications. So if you think about it, our degree here at Rose State is that right there. Pretty much it touches on every one of these domains in one aspect or another. Okay. Our goal here is to offer a kind of a boot camp class in the CISSP. Just need to do it because it's a lot. I obviously have my degree from Tulsa, but I did go through a boot camp class right before I took the test because they're always a good thing to do. But the CISSP, a lot of stuff involved there. Okay, you could do information system security architect or architecture professional or engineering professional. There's just a bunch of other areas of that. Now the SSCP says more applicable to the security manager than to the technician. There you go. You see, it still has access controls, cryptography, malicious code. So it has a little bit more, but a lot of it's still the same as the CISSP. Okay, here's the CSLP. This is our software life cycle professionals. Back when I worked at Tinker the last few years, I was actually in the software development area, and the software life cycle is a big deal. And we had the what the hell is it called? Not the begins with C. CMM, Capability Maturity Module. We were CMM level 2, which was good. I don't think we'd ever get to 1. But it basically says the quality of your software development. Do you have the right policies and practices in place? Okay. It says the qualified must have at least 4 years of recent experience with software development. Okay. So you have to really be in there. Okay. Here are some of the concepts, secure software concepts. You all have some basic computers programming, maybe Java or something. Well, there's something about a global variable and a local, or public and private. You might have heard about that. A big aspect. Way back, let's see, we're talking mid-90s, I was actually hired by a company, a bank actually, to produce a prototype of a web app to view checks online. Novel concept, isn't it? You'd be able to view the checks that you wrote online. They gave me an application written in Visual Basic. What now?
Don't they rip the checks up after?
No, but they take pictures of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they take pictures of them. Like my bank, I do it all through my phone now. As long as the check's under $2,500, I just take a picture of my phone and deposit it. But they gave me a Visual Basic program, but it had all global variables, which, if you know anything about programming, is a very, very bad thing. They were all global public variables. Can be changed anywhere throughout the program. So I redesigned the whole thing. I wrote it in ASP. No, CSP. No, I wrote it in ASP. I think I did, didn't I? It's been so many years. But I wrote it in a language which worked with IIS at the time, Microsoft's Internet Information Server. And got it working. I actually proved the prototype would work. You could log in, you could put in an account number, and it would show you your check. And guess what they said? We don't really see any need for this. We don't see it ever picking up in the world, so they didn't want the project. I'm like, dude, you're screwed. I actually wrote way back when, I actually wrote an online auction program. Yeah. Now look what we got. We got eBay and everybody else. I'm like,
you tipped off at eBay.
Yeah, it sucks. But again, these people. I wrote one for a guy where you could take pictures of a house. Say you're going to sell your house. You could take pictures of all the different areas of the house and upload them to this website. And then people say, hey, you want to buy your house? They could look, oh, here's a picture of the kitchen. Here's the bathroom. Here's, walk through it. What we have now.
Craigslist a bit, right? I guess maybe or something else.
What now?
Craigslist.
Actually, it kind of would have been like Zillow or something for a house that was for sale. But it was funny because I wrote this guy. I had to deliver a certain program for $1,500, and he was going to pay the other $1,500. Well, he never paid any of it. That sucks. So no, I got stiffed on that deal. But the point is, there's a lot of software development going on, and it's not easy. Way back before D2L, before WebCT and all those, I wrote an online grading software here for Rose State even. It was amazing. I even used it for Park University. It was funny. I got a call from a bigwig at Park University. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, we get a student evaluation of you. And it says, the only way his class could be better is if he included popcorn and drinks. Like, what do you do? So I was telling him about my online grade book, but he's like, you seriously? Students can take tests online and can see their grades? They were like, totally. I actually used it for a whole bunch of classes at Park University before all this stuff was made. So I have been involved in this stuff quite a bit. That Sergeant Grit guy wrote his first accounting software. You know what military is ribbons? Well, he had an issue because people want to know which ribbon goes in what order. So I wrote an ASP app that would actually, you could select which ribbons you have, and based on the requirements from the military, would actually build your ribbon bar for you. Then you can order it with a click of one button. Man, that was like, they're actually still using it today, which is kind of cool. So, there's a lot of stuff you can do in this area. Testing, not so much in that area. My programs do have bugs in them. That's why I don't allow them to be sold, because I know they're not perfect. Okay. How about acceptance? Do people use it? Okay.
I always speed through the terms and conditions.
Yeah.
So it's just, where's the button?
And how about maintenance and disposal? Software's, the leaves program I wrote for the military, when people went on leave, someone actually submitted a, whatever you call it, a suggestion program that it be implemented worldwide. They wanted to get money to implement my program that I wrote, which pissed me off. But what I said was, no, I wrote a big old letter back about all the flaws in the program. I said, no, you're not paying this guy money for a program I wrote. Because I knew they were going to come up with something better, which they do have now. You can all do it through, what's the program you all use now?
D2L?
No, for in the military, you're going on leave, you do anything through MPF.
Oh,
Get the-
MPF.
MPF.
It's different because I'm in the reserves now.
Oh, okay.
Marine
But there's
officer.
some online program, you do everything now. Okay. But yeah, back then it didn't have it. Okay. All right, associates, you can actually get say you want to get your CISSP, but you don't have the experience, you can become an associate member. Which means you pass the test, you just don't have the experience at this point. So, a lot of people are going that way as well. Here's some of the ISACA certifications, CISM, CSA, so on and so forth. There's a lot of those. They go into each one. We're not going to walk through each one of these. For Chapter 11, I put up there in the Dropbox extra credit. If you want extra credit, what you need to do is go find at least one, hopefully more than one, of jobs available in this area, in this field, when you graduate. In other words, you just graduated Rose State, you know what knowledge you're going to have, you know what positions are out there, go look and see what's available. Just give me a link and say, hey, this job, here's the requirements of it. And the whole point of that is I want you all to look and see what's available. There are literally tons and tons of jobs available in this area. So for extra credit, find me a job posting or two. Okay? And don't tell me you're going to work at McDonald's. We actually do have a student who has graduated from here working at Popeye's Chicken. He won't leave. There's openings, but he likes working at Popeye's Chicken. So, fine, you can work at Popeye's Chicken. So, he actually works at Popeye's Chicken on base even. So, yeah, he's an awesome guy. But, no, that's what your extra credit is. Go find me a job posting or two. Actual posting is when you graduate from Rose State based on what you're going to learn. Okay? All right, there's some of the CISA requirements. This code of ethics you see here in the middle they keep talking about. That's a big deal, okay? Because ethics is such a, That's why we got that cyber law and ethics class. Ethics is an area we are really, really lacking. Maintenance fees. You have to pay money to keep your certifications up. I think mine is $85. It's either a year or every other year or every 3 years. I don't know. It's $85 for some duration. Okay?
That's not to retest. You just pay the due.
Right. You pay the dues, and you have to have what's called continuing education credits. Take a class like you're doing now. You're going to get 40 hours for it. Go to a conference. Read a magazine. All that stuff gets you credit. Attend a webinar. So yeah, there's tons of ways. So many people complain about the continuing education credit. For mine, it's 120 for 3 years. 120 contact hours. It's like reading a magazine to get you 5. Okay? I always have so many that once it resets, I usually have the 120 in the first year. Because there's so much stuff you can do to get credit. Okay? Yeah. So, all right. Says adhere to the auditing standard. Like I actually went to a class 2 weeks ago, and I haven't put it in their system yet. So, mine's already full anyway. So, they used to let you roll over a bunch. They don't anymore. They only let you roll over so much. It's like, darn it. Okay. All right. Here's some of the areas it covers. Okay, the process of auditing, the governance, management, so a lot of stuff there. Certified in the governance of IT. Okay. Upper level executives. Strategic management, risk optimization, resource optimization. There's the certification there. Okay. Risk identification, risk response, risk monitoring. There's lots of different areas. SAN certifications, very, very, very popular. And there are just tons of them. GAIC, the Information Security Professional, Security Leadership certification, and so on and so forth. One thing about certifications, they become kind of addictive once you get one or two. I literally have a bunch on my wall, plus I have a briefcase full in the back. I don't have room to put them all, so you get a bunch there. Says full certifications require 2 exams and certificates require a single exam. So depending on, some of them require more. For instance, Microsoft, you can become a Microsoft certified professional with 1 exam. You want to be an MCSE, it's like 5 exams. So some of them require more. Okay. It says platinum certifications require a multiple choice test along with a day-long lab. I will tell you at this point, the labs are easier than what you expect. Like the lab, I don't know if I told you that class that 2 weeks ago I had to take a test and I passed that. I got a 90. I know there's a couple questions that were wrong. I overthunk them. I'm like, I know this is not the right answer, but this is technically the right answer. But I also have to pass a practical, which I'm pretty much done. I got it in my office. I just haven't submitted it yet. So you do that for a lot of certifications. Okay. EC Council, that's your ethical hacker and stuff like that. Okay. Says that's test not only security domain knowledge, but also executive business management. They want everybody to know a little bit about management. Policies, legals, compliance. Okay. All right, CompTIA. We all know what CompTIA is. Security Plus, like I said, is the current one that most people want. A Plus and Network Plus are still good, but Security Plus is the most current. Here's the domains they cover. Network security, compliance, threats, application data, access control, cryptography. So, not a bad exam. So if you can get one, I suggest you get that one. Okay, ISFCE. This is the place I went to. I'm getting the CCFE, Certified Cyber Forensics Expert. It's through this company. It's not listed on this stuff here. Okay, pass an online exam, and then perform actual forensics examination on some media, which that's what I'm doing now. Okay. Also, no criminal record, which would be handy. Okay. Ethics again. They want ethics. Data seizure procedures. So y'all, anyone had forensics yet? Anybody? You're in it. When you receive evidence. So say my cell phone. Well, actually, we'll say this computer's evidence. Should I, in the crime, this is my evidence from the crime. Should I immediately start analyzing this computer? I really should image it first. because you don't want to screw up the original. So I'm going to image this, then work off of my image.
You also don't even know if someone's left something on there.
Right, you don't know. Now, for my practical, I have to actually analyze some evidence. So what they did is they gave me a CD-ROM with the evidence on it. So if I have to prove data seizure procedures, how would I do that? So what I did was I wrote in there, it says the evidence was received. I imaged the CD-ROM, which is technically an image already. But I basically said I imaged this CD-ROM, and here's my hash value of the CD-ROM. Made 2 copies of it, and I'm working off a copy of it. Because they didn't say I had to do that. That wasn't anywhere in the instructions. But I could see that would be a trick question. Right. That's exactly what I said. It says the original evidence has been placed in the safe. Because they didn't ask for that. But you see where I'm going with this? That might be a hidden question. Exactly. I do that kind of stuff. So that might be why I'm doing that. But it's funny because analyzing it, had to tell them what operating system it is. So I make an image of it. And I go in there with FTK and encase both, and it comes on up, and right in the root directory, I see a Windows directory. So I'm just running Windows. You all agree? I should know you agree. Right near there, there's a directory called Win98 with all the setup files. Y'all remember Windows 98? They had all the setup files there. So what's my OS? No, it's Windows XP. Because when I actually queried the registry, the OS is Windows XP. What they had done was they just copied the setup files in there and make it look like it was something else. It's tricky. So you think I'm tricky? That's damn tricky.
I was waiting for the twist. I was like, no.
Because somebody taking this test, they're going to see Windows 98. Oh, it's Windows 98. I know that because the file's right there. So I actually it says in the root directory is Windows 98 setup files, which would make you think it's Windows 98. But when analyzing the registry keys, you actually see it's Windows XP. So see, they're tricky like that. Okay. But they have a Master Certified Computer Examiner plus a bunch of other ones. Cost. This is as much as $750. Yeah, they get damn expensive. I think CSLP is $600. I think it is. Okay. There are multiple exams, could cost more. Okay. Some require experience, some don't. The years of just passing a test are almost gone. Okay. So they want you to have experience doing all this stuff. Okay. Policies and practices, recruiting, hiring, firing, releasing, all that's important. Let's talk about these. First of all, hiring somebody. Post a job description. And the people that apply should meet the job description. But most of the time they don't. We actually had a guy applying for the cybersecurity position. And the dean was all excited because he has a Juris Doctorate. That's a doctorate, okay, in law. But I got to look, he has a doctorate, so yeah, Rose wants to hire doctors. It makes us look good. But I got to look at him, I'm like, but he has no experience in computers or cybersecurity. So why would he apply for the cybersecurity position even though he has a doctorate? Like, anyone remember Singal, Professor Singal? He might be before y'all's time. But he had a PhD in electrical engineering. So he taught programming. I didn't think anything of it. But I actually took him over to Park University. What?
So at least it's in the ballpark.
Right, it's in the ballpark. But I took him over to Park University to teach for them as well. And the lady over there looked at his transcript and like, you can't teach computer science. I'm like, what? She goes, you have no computer science courses at the master's level or above. And I didn't even think about it. She was right. He didn't have any. So he didn't even have computer language courses at the bachelor's level. He had none. Yet he was teaching programming. Maybe that's why we had such an issue and he finally left. But job descriptions, pretty big deal. Okay? Don't put everything in there, but put what you desperately need. Interview people. It says tours of facilities should avoid seizure or secure and restricted areas. We're hiring you. We're not going to show you everything yet. Once you get hired, we will. Okay. New hire orientation. You should always go through some sort of orientation procedure. I didn't when I was hired because, believe it or not, Rose State does most of its hiring in the fall and August time period. So if you get hired in January, they kind of skip all that. So I missed out on all of it. On-the-job training. Actually, Tinker does security training all the time, monthly. If you don't do it, it cuts off your network access. So, pretty big deal. Security checks, background checks, all important, and they're very expensive. Normally, they're always run by the hiring organization. Reference checks, compensation history, motor vehicle records, all kinds of stuff. Drug history, medical history, credit history, lots of stuff should be checked. Why would you think credit history would even be important? Why would you want to check that?
See if they have a money issue, and people with money issue will go out of their way to get money. So if you like,
Perfect. Exactly. You got someone with money issues. They got a bunch of bankruptcies. Obviously, can't manage their own money. Very easy target for blackmail, for coercion, or something like that. Okay. All right. It says must comply with federal guidelines. Now, actually, it wasn't Rose State. It's all state agencies now. We can no longer check or ask if you're a felon. Sorry, I have an issue with that, but that's what the governor said. So, all right, contracts. We mentioned at the beginning of the lecture, but hiring contractors is good, but it's also bad. Edward Snowden was a contractor working for the NSA. Okay? Did nothing different than Hillary Clinton did, but he's not running for presidency. Okay, so let's see what else we got. Organizations should incorporate InfoSec into employer performance evaluation. So who should be involved in InfoSec? Pretty much everybody, in one aspect or another. Okay, everybody should know about it. It says, including InfoSec tasks into performance evaluations will motivate employees to take more care when performing these tasks. Okay, termination. What do we do when we fire someone? Obviously, take away their access to stuff. You should really fire people at lunch. Reason is, they go to lunch, you remove all their access during the day, or they return from lunch, take all their cards away. That way they have no chance to screw stuff up. Okay? That's the best way of doing it. Hard drives must be secured, locks must be changed, codes must be changed, their personal effects must be removed from whatever position they're at. Okay. Let's see. Practice separation of duties. Let's talk about here. So we got at the top here, we got two people. It says team members review each other's works, and the NSA now has that in place after Edward Snowden. There's a name for it because I was at a meeting. There was some employees talking about it. Not every task, but tasks I guess that are important, or certain tasks have to be done, then a totally different employee must check them before they're approved. It's kind of like you do everything, just don't hit submit yet. And then you go over here and check it all, and then as long as we both agree, then we hit submit. It's kind of a cool way of doing it. Separation of duties. Work is divided up. Each team member does different tasks. But again, what if this person on the left is a bad guy? Then you really could be an issue. Okay. Job rotations. It requires that every employee be able to perform the work of at least one other employee, which is kind of cool. Navy does that. If I remember, I think the Navy actually rotates to not all, but most positions, like security guard, cook, all that stuff. I think they rotate through. Not all positions, but a lot. Task rotations. All critical tasks can be performed by multiple individuals. I have an issue with that here at Rose State, and actually a lot of places. Stephanie, our secretary, she does my travel. I still don't know why I don't do my own travel. Because I was in the military, I did my own travel. But here it's not my job, so I don't do my own travel. But guess what happens if Stephanie's gone? What happened to Ken's travel? It doesn't get done until she comes back. So I have an issue with that. And it's like our grant person was gone. Actually, she comes back tomorrow. But I'm like, I hope someone's checking her email about this NSA grant we got coming in. Because if it's coming directly to her and only her, we're kind of screwed. So that could be a big issue. Mandatory vacation policy. Without reading anything beyond that, maybe we need people to take vacation to give them a break. But if you read the rest of it, you must take at least a week vacation for everyone to be able to review your work. Makes sense. What has Ken been doing for the last year? I do not know of a single organization that does that. Not a single one. that says, okay, Ken's gone now. Now let's go review what Ken's work was. How has he been doing it? That's a different way of looking at it. Okay. All right. This says organizations required by law to protect sensitive information. There's something called a directory, not a phone directory. But there's something like directory information. It could include your address, your birthday, your social security number. All that stuff should be secured. Okay. Because for this new Gen Cyber program we're going to do, I have to collect birthdays of applying students. Birthday is considered directory information, so it has to be stored securely. So it's tough. But yeah, phone numbers, social security numbers, medical conditions, names and addresses of family members, all that stuff should be stored.
Pretty easy to get that. 'Cause,
It's pretty easy to get all of it.
I forget what my names. She's my professor, and I can't even remember her, but she teaches a lot of the basic courses. She talked about how students actually just went around with the survey and actually got people to just
Exactly.
give all their information.
And they do. They will just give it up, no problem at all. All right, so this responsibility also extends to customers, patients, and anyone else. I still remember I was over having a heart scan done where they put the camera up through my arm into my heart to look at it. I was at the,
Interesting way to look at your heart.
I was over at Midwest Boulevard, across from the old Target. It's funny, I was on whatever meds they give you to calm you down, and they literally, the computer was so unsecure, and I happened to know the person working there, and I had whatever they gave me. I was very boisterous at that time, and I was saying, this is not secure. Like, yes it is, you couldn't get into it. So literally with my wrong hand, because my right arm had the, which is I'm right-handed, my right arm had the stuff in it, the IV and stuff. With my left hand I was able to go over there and get right in and see all the employee records. Because what they did was, when they were done with Ken Dewey, they hit close. And it goes to a drop-down list of all the employees. You just literally pick a different employee, a different patient, and click on it. Opens right up with all their information. It's like, no security, and they're like, oh, because they thought this thing closed was kind of, no, it wasn't. It was just closing that record, but still left them all open. So it was very scary. Hopefully it's fixed now, but that was years ago. Okay, temporary workers. That's a tough one. Obviously, they should not get much access. But depending on what position you're hiring them for, you might have to give them access.
There's a phrase for it, right? It's you only give them enough access to actually do their job.
Least privilege, yes.
Yeah.
But think about it. We hired a company to install PeopleSoft here at Rose State. Obviously, they needed to have full access to PeopleSoft because they were installing it. But they were temporary employees. So, it really depends on what they're doing there. Okay? Contract employees, again, we have contract cleaners here. Contract cops, we have thefts from them as well. So, all right, consultants, they normally come in, they're experts in one area, hire them to do one thing, and they might need permissions because that might be what they're working on. Could be a business partner. Maybe you're going to work alongside some other company or some other person. Okay? All right, that's the end of this. Okay, post the extra credit in the Dropbox. I only gave you till Wednesday to do the extra credit. It's not a typo.
Okay.
It's on purpose. So get it in by Wednesday. All right?
There's extra credit and no assignment.
You already know what the extra credit is. No assignment. Correct. There's
Okay.
extra credit but no assignment.
Right.
Very good. Yeah, there is no assignment. It's just extra credit this week. I talked about it in the recording.